this episode, I want to spend some time talking about staging. And if you've already had your initial doctor's visit with your oncologist, or a surgeon or someone in the care team who has shared with you what stage your cancer is in, I want to give you some really helpful information that will hopefully help you avoid the dark abyss and hole that I spent, I don't know, at least days in, and save you from some unnecessary grief and stress and worry. Facing cancer is hard enough as it is. And these, again, are some of the gaps that I found in my treatment journey with my treatment team. Not to say that everybody on my team wasn't great and wonderful. A lot of great people out there who are helping those of us, with cancer to heal and get better. So this isn't meant to be bashing by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm hoping to arm you with information and help educate you so that you can put the things that you're hearing, like staging, into their proper context and take them for what they're worth and then throw them out the window and leave them behind. Because as you're going to hear me explain, staging is nothing more than, to use an analogy, it's like a coordinate or a GPS coordinate on a map. It is a starting point. It is not a destination. So again, by now, if you're listening to this, you may have already had a conversation with your doctor where they shared with you what stage your cancer was. And so if that number is rattling around in your head like a prison sentence, like it was for me when I was diagnosed last year, and when my mother was diagnosed 20 years ago, I need you to hear this. The stage is nothing more than a point in time assessment. That's it, where the cancer is today. It is not a verdict, okay? And it is not your final destination, okay? It is simply a tool that doctors use to help them determine what treatments and protocol they will follow to treat your cancer. So, as I said, when I look back at my journey, one of the things that I really wish I had known, both when my mother was diagnosed over 20 years ago and when I received my own diagnosis, I wish I'd known that staging is not the same thing as a prognosis or, again, where you'll end up. It doesn't dictate where you're going, what is going to happen to you, your final destination, or how you're going to respond to treatment. And unfortunately, I spent so much time being sad and down and depressed simply because of a number. And I really wish that I hadn't. And I will add that, I am on several social media support groups for women with breast cancer, metastatic breast cancer. And I would say a lot of those women have shared the same fears, worries, and concerns. You hear a label, you hear metastatic, and it just has this dark, heavy, negative connotation. And maybe in doing this, we can help shake some of that. Because although I don't want us to take it lightly, right? And I'm not trying to minimize the severity of cancer or metastatic cancer or any stage. I'm not trying to minimize it. I want us to put it in its proper box and keep it there. And so my hope is that this saves you, or maybe someone you know who's facing cancer, from that same kind of unnecessary stress and worry. So what I'm about to cover may not be new information for you. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But on the off chance that maybe it didn't make sense, or, if you're like me in your first doctor's visit, you're hearing all this information, and even if you took notes, it can take days to digest and process everything that you heard, right? Or again, maybe you aren't the one that was diagnosed. Maybe you're listening because you're supporting someone on their cancer journey and you have questions. And maybe you're afraid to ask, or you just didn't ask. And so I'm going to give you a very quick and basic overview of some staging types, because there are different types depending on the type of cancer, and some basic information that most people will receive during that initial visit with their oncologist. So why does this matter? As I talk to you about your path, right? Your path to healing and resilience and thriving, which is what this whole book and podcast is about. Again, I think I said this earlier. I want you to understand staging is nothing more than a measuring tool that your doctor uses to help inform your treatment plan, what type of treatment, where to begin. They have a lot of different tools in their toolbox today, okay? And thankfully, we have far more tools and resources available to us today than we did 10, 20 years ago, right? Everything from surgeries, radiation, chemo, immunotherapy, I mean, the list goes on and on. The arsenal of tools available today to help us fight cancer is greater than ever before, and it continues to grow every single year. But this staging isn't a box that you are stuck in. It doesn't determine your fate or your outcome in this part of your journey or this chapter of your book. And I absolutely do not want you to let a number or a category have any power over you or shake your determination to heal and beat whatever it is that you're facing. So, staging is a point in time assessment of how big or small the cancer is, and that is it. So, when you're diagnosed, one of the first things that a doctor will do is run a lot of tests, right? There could be scans, blood work, imaging, so on and so forth, right? And all of that initial work is intended to help them understand what stage it is, or like a weather forecast. When the meteorologist says, there's a 70% chance of rain today, that information helps inform what you're going to do when you go outside. It helps you decide, are you going to wear a raincoat? Are you bringing an umbrella? Are you wearing galoshes, right? But it doesn't control whether your day is going to be good or bad, unless you're absolutely terrified of the rain. You might have the best day of your life in the rain. And you could have a terrible day in the sunshine. But the forecast, okay, is just information that helps us prepare. It is not dictating or declaring the type of day that we are going to have. So staging is the same thing, right? It helps your doctor to essentially know what types of tools to use, to pack the right umbrella, choose the right treatments, but it does not determine the quality of your journey or your destination and where you will ultimately end up, right? It tells the doctor how big the cancer is, right? So if we're talking about tumor types of cancers, because just to back up a little bit, staging is different for different types of cancers. And I didn't know that because I've only had one type of cancer so far. And when it comes to tumor cancers like breast cancer, there's a number system, right? 0 to 4. But I have since learned that there are other stage categories for other types of cancers. But the systems, regardless of whether they're numbers or letters or some other unit, they're telling you how big the cancer is. They're telling you where it's located. They're telling the doctor if it's spread, whether it's to a local area or other distant parts of the body. And they need that information to determine the best treatment plan for you. It helps them to even predict how well a treatment is going to work, right? Because depending on the size and location, different treatments will have different effects. And it also helps to communicate with anyone else on your care team or any other doctors when they're talking about your care and your treatment, right? Because a lot of doctors don't work alone in a vacuum. They work with an entire team of professionals, an entire cancer center, all of their colleagues in the industry to, share information and best practices. And so it just helps them to understand, hey, we've got a small, stage X, something over here. These treatments work well for this, but if it's this size and it's over here, this treatment works best for that. That's really all it is. And like I said, not all cancers use the same staging systems because they behave differently. So, if you're interested in finding out more about the types of staging for your particular cancer, absolutely. There's a lot of information out there. Instead of Google or your preferred search engine, I would encourage you to go to your cancer center's website, because if they haven't already, it is very likely that they have a lot of fantastic resources already available for newly diagnosed patients that would be helpful for you. And a lot of them are going to break down things like this in a very easy to understand way. So bottom line, I'm not going to get into the details. Stage 3 colon cancer is not the same as stage 3 bladder cancer, is not the same thing as, blah, blah, blah. But if you still have questions, I absolutely recommend that you write down your questions in your notepad, your cell phone notes, whatever it is that you're using, and ask. If they didn't cover it, find out. Again, it doesn't determine what's going to happen to you other than what type of treatment they're going to use. But if you have a question, ask it. You can also ask about how your stage or your case is different if you wanted to know that, and certainly what it means for long-term patient outcomes, which I will talk about in our next episode. So remember, staging is like finding out where you are in a race, not where you're going to finish. So some people might start further back, but run with such fierce determination and speed and have such great support and coaching and training that they far exceed expectations, right? And so it doesn't really matter so much what stage or starting position you're in when you're diagnosed. What matters more to your final outcome is how you run your race, right? How are you going to handle stress and your health and your exercise and your diet, and how are you going to take care of yourself, how you're going to run your race, and who's cheering you on and supporting you, right? Which doctors are helping or coaching or guiding you, and your own personal level of determination. Those are the things that matter. And those are the things that matter far more than what stage your cancer may or may not have been in. So do not make the same mistake that I did. Do not let a number or a category have any power or control over you, your mindset, or let it shake your determination to heal or beat whatever it is that you're facing. It is nothing more than a measurement, a point in time, and again, used by doctors to help understand which tool in the toolbox is most appropriate to use and in what order. And when I think about how my own, diagnosis went down, how it was explained and delivered, and how my first oncologist delivered that news, I really wish I could go back and give her some constructive feedback, because a stage is not your cage, right? It's simply where you are today. It is not where you will end up. Okay, not a snapshot. Or excuse me, it is a snapshot. It is not a life sentence. It's been a long day. And so many people, with advanced stages of cancer are outliving the statistics for their stages by decades. Okay, not 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, decades. So I want you to focus on living fully rather than living in fear. You are in control. And whether cancer shrinks your world or expands your appreciation for life, whether it isolates you and depresses you or deepens your connections with other people or your faith, or whether you let it defeat you or reveal a strength that you never knew that you had, the stage has no power unless you give it the power. So again, it's just a GPS coordinate. This is where you are today. Tomorrow's destination is still being written and largely determined and influenced by you. And you are holding the pen of your so-called story. So while understanding staging is important to know where you are in the map and where the treatment is going to begin and end, where a lot of doctors tend to go wrong is that they quote stages and statistics as if they are our destiny or our cage, and they're not. So I hope that helps you understand within the context of these initial, conversations with our doctors. I don't want you to let your stage be your cage. If you're stage 0, early stage, great, fantastic. If you're late advanced stage, I want you to just say, who cares? Who cares? Because the only thing that matters is you, your determination, your will, and your fight. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight and the dog, as they say. Not that fighting dogs is a good analogy, but I hope that's helpful for you. And I look forward to talking to you in the next episode about statistics and how a statistic is different from a prognosis, because one is looking at the past and the other is looking to the future. So thank you again for your time today. I hope this was helpful. God bless you. sending you warm thoughts and healing vibes. And I look forward to our next session. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please visit www.thesecrettothriving.com and fill out the guest request form.